Okay, everyone, welcome to the Tuesday Night Talk pre-show. We're here at episode 8. I want to give you an opportunity to check your audio, check your video, and settle in for the next 45 minutes. As with weeks past, COVID-19 cases are now fast approaching 10 million worldwide, while the pandemic coalesces with a pronounced call for social justice, particularly here in North America. Here in British Columbia, restrictions are easing as reported cases dip below 3,000. The Audain Art Museum reopens to the public on Friday at 11 a.m. with a very new health-conscious cultural experience. So I think we're going to move into the actual show. No, I'm being told to stretch it out, so I can do that in a heartbeat. One thing that I would like to highlight this evening is the Audain Art Museum coloring book. It's suitable for people of all ages, and on the second last page, it's actually a work by our guest tonight, Shawn Hunt, and we'll be talking more about this piece, but in addition to Shawn's piece, we have historic pieces like this wonderful piece by Emily Carr, B.C. Binning, Lauren Harris. As I said, just a wonderful record of the collection and one that you can color in all kinds of different colors to your heart's delight. Here you go, Erica. So we're ready to go right into the actual show. So good evening to the Tuesday Night Talks. Tonight we're at the second last episode, episode 8. And in previous weeks, this broadcast is happening at a moment when a call for the dismantling of unjust police systems are playing off against a profound change in public health that affects us all. Tonight, we're in the upper gallery here of the Audain Art Museum's beautiful Patcow design building in Whistler, and it's on the shared territories of the Squamish and Lillooet nations. As mentioned in the pre-show, soon the museum will be emerging from the flashlight's glow, and we're thrilled to be reopening to the public on Friday at 11 a.m. And our new hours for the remainder of the summer will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., as well as a special opening on Canada Day, and that's on a Wednesday, and will actually remain open on July 2nd as well, same hours, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tonight, we have over 275 registered viewers as we wind down season 1 of TNT. The topic of this evening's talk is the work behind me, and that's by Shawn Hunt, and it's entitled Traditional Evolution, Raven Steals My Light. It's an acrylic on canvas of 2013 that comes courtesy to the museum from the Audain Art Foundation. And now we're going to go live to Shawn's studio in Davis Bay, BC, on the Sunshine Coast. Hello, Shawn.
Hi, Curtis. Hey, everybody.
How are you doing this evening?
What's that?
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's nice to be out of the house, and it's nice to be, I love my kids, but it's nice to be away from them for just an hour or so. Been pretty full
okay.
With this quarantine, so it's nice to get out.
Well, thank you. And so perhaps we'll begin with your discussion of some of the works that led to this wonderful painting in our collection here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first painting, I'm hoping that it's up right now. The first painting this is an example of the type of work that I was doing prior to doing Raven Steals My Light. And I was working on this kind of stuff, and I met Lawrence Paul Gilwellington, and he invited me to come in and work in his studio with him. So I took that opportunity. I was living on the Sunshine Coast, and I moved into Vancouver, and the next slide that you'll see, Justine, if you could just, yeah, is another one of these. So these are portraits that I was doing where I was putting together, you know, all various elements as well as creatures in the Northwest Coast realm and world, and I was putting them together to create faces. This one was called the Mushroom Eater. Next slide, please. All right. So this one, this is sort of the first of this series. And so when I moved into Lawrence's studio, I literally moved from a beach cottage where I had eagles nesting above me and ravens everywhere to East Van, and it was a big kind of a culture shock for me. I had lived in Vancouver before to go to school and stuff like that, but never to work. And so I moved into Lawrence's studio to work with him, and I just was like, you know, kind of, you know, out of my element and in need of subject matter, and was sort of like, well, I'm really not seeing my typical ravens and eagles that I just love to paint and carve. So I'm seeing a lot of these pigeons, and I'd never seen a native artist take up the pigeon and try to you know to represent the pigeon. So that was like one of the first sort of paintings from this series where I was trying to do this sort of new traditional evolution of tradition kind of thing. So yeah, this painting is, I think it's 6 by 8 feet, and it's at my mom's house. So it's really big, takes up a lot of room. Next slide, please. This one is also from that series. So I did a painting called The Trickster, which this is the Audain shirt that I wore tonight. So I did this painting, and then a few years later, I wanted to try and tackle it again. And so I did this one, which is a riff off of it, also called The Trickster. Next slide, please. This one is called New Totem. And again, it's kind of playing with the idea of tradition and contemporary and sort of blurring the line there. As Curtis noted earlier, there is an Emily Carr influence. I wanted to kind of take that into the trees and the palette and whatnot. But I got the idea for this when I saw a totem pole, and I saw an eagle at the top with a raven sitting on the top, and I just thought that was, you know, so like the raven, being so clever and all of that, just to sort of trump the eagle by flying up and landing on the top and saying like he's the top of the totem. And then there's this sort of like wry comment towards the fact that it's a contemporary modern pole. It's not one done in the past. If you look very, very closely, you'll see just sort of streaking across the sky the new bird, which is actually much higher and attained a much taller and greater position than both the eagle and the raven, is this 747 jet airliner flying sort of up above them. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the painting that you're showing tonight is called Raven Steals My Light. And so the first painting that I did, this is gonna make sense until I explain what this one is. This one was called Supermarket Eagle, and this is also part of the Audain collection. And so Michael ended up coming to Lawrence's studio because he collects a lot of Lawrence's work. And I believe he had maybe a portrait of mine or something. I know he had a painting or two prior to this one, but he came in and was looking at Lawrence's work and saw me working on this one, or it was almost finished, and decided that he wanted it for his collection. And I didn't know it was for the museum at that point. I didn't really know. I don't even know if I knew too much about the museum at that point. But then, so he bought this one and took it, and then called me, you know, a few weeks later and said he wanted a companion piece for this one. So that ended up being the Raven piece that we're looking at tonight. But I had no idea where they were going to end up, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised to see that they both ended up in the permanent collection at the museum. Next slide, please. Yeah, so again, just a work in progress of the Raven Steals My Light, just to sort of show you the studio. This was in Lawrence's studio, and this was my little spot here. Next slide, please. Right on. Okay, so this is me painting the supermarket eagle, which is the companion piece to this Raven piece. Next slide. And then here's the piece, the final finished piece. And yeah, just you know, playing off of the idea, you know, the popular myth, the well-known myth of Raven stealing the sun, stealing the light, and putting the light up in the sky, giving the world light. You know, everybody knows that ravens like to steal shiny things, and they're clever and tricksterish. And I had this like fancy red Zippo lighter that my wife had bought me for my birthday, and I lost it. And I guess I just blamed it on the raven. I don't know. He took it, but I blamed it on him anyway. And so yeah, that's my lighter there that he's got. And then I think that's it for that, right, Chris?
Yeah, but let's perhaps go back to one of the first works that you talked about.
Sure.
And I'm curious, Shawn, just about the kind of the multiple angles and the very kind of fractured perspectives that you use in those first two paintings that we looked at.
Right. So that you're speaking about the portraits.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this was how this came about for me. If I can remember back to what I was doing, it was I was doing a lot of designing and stuff, and the form line. How do I explain this? Lines were starting to not join. They were coming apart, and the design was coming apart, and pieces were coming apart. And I started to just use the elements on their own. So instead of like normally a design would be, you know, a traditional design would be black and red, and the black line, which is known as the form line, kind of acts as a skeleton to hold all the red or secondary or tertiary elements in place, kind of like a skeleton, and the red being like the flesh. Well, what I ended up doing was just basically stripping away the skeleton, the form line, and just taking the elements as they exist on their own, not held in place. Now they're not held in place by a skeleton, and so then I can just free form, move them around, push them together to create faces. You know, I'll use things like ovoids, U-forms, split U, trinegative. You know, these are all sort of various terminology for the different types of elements that we use in traditional art. But I'm using them in a very non-traditional way, just, you know, pushing them all together to create something that is, in a way, it borrows a lot from like cubism. There's that element to it as well.
And your choice of colors is very particular in these two works with regards to, you know, that sort of acidy greens and yellows off against very primary blues and reds. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, just the colors that we see. You know, I didn't feel a desire to go really traditional with the colors. I wanted them to exist today. I didn't with this series want these to be thought of as, you know, sort of artifacts or, you know, remnants of the past. I wanted them to be contemporary. I wanted them to be of now. And so I use the colors of now, you know, the colors that I'm able to get. You know, if it was, you know, sort of pre-contact era kind of thing, I, you know, might be stuck using some traditional colors, but because, you know, we have, you know, things like Opus and, you know, places like that, I can just go get any color I want. And so that was the impetus behind it. I just wanted to use any color that I could, and the brighter the better. So there's lots of fluorescence in these early pieces.
And may I ask what this particular work, the face is chewing on?
Yeah. So this one is called the Mushroom Eater, and he's chewing on some mushrooms that he found. I sort of have this this theory, and I imagine a lot of people have this theory, but it's my belief that much of our artwork could have come from the ingestion of psychedelic properties, things like that could make you see visions and things of that nature. I myself have experimented quite a bit with them, and they've led to breakthroughs and interesting things in my work. So yeah, I thought a good way to kind of incorporate one of my inspirations into the piece.
Excellent. And perhaps we could move to the pigeon piece again, if you don't mind, Justine. So this is very curious. As you said, the pigeon isn't often a subject matter in Northwest Coast art. But again, you give little kind of references like the cigarette butt in the background, and anything else that you'd want to talk about this work in terms of the rendering or the coloration?
No, I mean, well, I definitely was trying to go for like an urban feel, and I was trying to go for that like city grayed out, like dirty, not bright, sunshiny green kind of feel. Like, it was a real, everything I was seeing was green, and then I moved to Vancouver and everything I saw was gray. So it really fit in with that. And then the cigarette was actually, I'm trying to remember back to where I was at this point. And what I had done is I'd drawn the pigeon, and this is when I was working with Lawrence, and Lawrence really wanted me to put the pigeon on the canvas that way. And I think he was kind of doing it to challenge me because it was awkward. And so I put it on there, and then I had to deal with all that negative space, and I wasn't liking it. And so I put the cigarette butt in there just to kind of create some depth, but also to fill in that space. And if you look, it's very subtle, but if you look on the concrete, I don't know if people will be able to see this at home, but if you look on the concrete where the cigarette is, there's actually a stain of a mouse woman traditional element on the ground there too. You see that?
Oh, very, very good. Yeah, I can see it.
Kind of sweeps in around, you can see an ovoid eye, and then just the hint of teeth and a nostril right where the cigarette butt is itself.
And moving on to the two works in the Audain collection here, the one thing I've always been curious about your work is that it seems your paintings are very sculptural, if I can say that, in the way that you render body parts, and there's hollow out spaces in the wings and things of that nature.
Right.
How do you negotiate that space between sculpture and painting?
Oh yeah. Well, I think I'm just a sculptor, like by nature, and I think sculpturally, I want my paintings to look as sculptural as possible. So I find it really informative that I can paint and I can sculpt, because I know what the painting needs to look like because I can sculpt it. So with the wing there and how it's three-dimensional and how you can see through it and it's cut away and all of that, like I know how that is going to look, and I know how to light that, and I know how that's going to exist in real space because I can carve and sculpt that. So a lot of my paintings, they look so sculptural because I know how light will fall on these things because I've carved them before, if that makes sense. Okay.
And then one other part of your body of work that I've seen in the past is jewelry. And how does that relate to, again, your painting and your sculpture?
Yeah, well, actually, jewelry was a really like a key part of my career in many ways, because jewelry is my entrance into native art as a career. it was how I began, and it was really good because I could do because they're so small and you make them so quickly. You have to design a lot, and so I got proficient at designing. And then so I was really into jewelry, and I did it for a long time. And it ended up like really damaging my neck to the point that I couldn't carve jewelry anymore. And that was okay because I was carving wood, but I don't like to just do one thing. Like and so not being able to do jewelry anymore and doing wood in the day and then having free time at night, I thought, well, maybe I'll take up and try to paint. I'd never painted before, really. I took like one course in university, like 100 level kind of painting thing. And, you know, I didn't really even take it that seriously because I just always thought I was a sculptor. And so it was actually like not being able to do jewelry anymore that led me to painting. So it was easier on my neck, and I could do it, you know, for longer periods of time. And then I realized that everything that I could depict in jewelry, I could depict on a painting, except that instead of it being like 1 inch tall, it could be, you know, 6 feet tall. So I really liked that I could get my ideas out there in a bigger way. And jewelry's nice, it's intimate, and you know, it's close to the body, and there's lots of advantages to that as well. But you know, there's something about like painting and just, you know, shouting out your ideas.
And before we leave this work in the collection, clearly the influence of Lawrence Paul here in terms of your clouds and that blue color. Can you speak to Lawrence Paul and your ongoing relationship with him?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Lawrence. When we were working on a house together, and he did a massive painting for it, and I did a fireplace for it. And one of the first things he said to me was, I said, "Oh, you know, this looks great. You know, you've got 2 fires," because it was an interior longhouse painting. I was like, "You got 2 fires here, and then my fire." You know, it's like this. And you know, the color on the floor of his painting was the color on the floor of the house, and it just looked really cool. And I said that to him, and he said, "Yeah, it'd be a lot better if this fireplace wasn't here ruining my painting." It's just like, okay, so I get what this guy's about. And then that was sort of my first you know, introduction to him. And you know, I got to know him, and I would go visit him in his studio, and I got to like him. And then he just one day asked me to come and work with him. And so I took the opportunity because he was one of my favorite artists growing up. You know, he was somebody that I had, you know, wrote, you know, essays on in university. And so, you know, what an opportunity, you know, to get to like work with, you know, here I am taking up painting, and I get to work with, you know, the preeminent, you know, sort of indigenous Northwest Coast painter. So I was super happy about that. And you know, I went in there and I got to work with Lawrence. I think we worked together for 3.5 years, and you know, we had some good times. We had some bad times, and I think in the end, I think we were both, you know, kind of needed a break from each other. We're both very competitive, you know, when it comes to not in a bad way, but you know, when you put 2 artists like that side by side, you know, things can happen. But you know, we're good now. You know, you know, it's like you can have your best friend for a roommate and end up, you know, wanting nothing to do with that person again. So we you know, we had our ups and downs, and you know, but now we're good. And you know, looking back on the experience, I just consider myself so lucky to be able to, you know, first of all, I worked with my dad. So, you know, got to learn from this incredible carver how to carve wood and jewelry, and then just stumble into this great opportunity to work with, you know, an incredible painter who, you know, frankly, like, you know, some of his work, some of his paintings are still some of my favorite works of art today.
And in fact, you know, we have a number of Lawrence Pauls in the collection here, and they're really standouts in terms of that historical lineage that you're talking about from yourself. So now we're going to move into the question and answer portion of the program.
Okay.
And I'm going to begin with a question from Sherry here in Whistler. And she states that she notices that your paintings have a somewhat mechanical look to the subject matter. And she wants to know if this is purposeful or stylistic.
It's not purposeful. It would be stylistic, and it's not purposefully stylistic either. I'm happy about that. Like, I think that that's cool. I like that they look like that. I definitely think that's a good thing, because I think in this time that we're living in, we're going to be confronted in the near future with sort of let's just say non-human type of maybe mechanical life forms and things like that. So no, I think it's cool. I'm always looking towards the future with the work, and I'm very, very much a futurist in terms of like where I see this work going. And so it's not crazy to see futuristic things in the work, because I'm obviously looking at a lot of that kind of stuff, and I'm influenced by a lot of that kind of stuff.
Great. And then in a similar vein, James from Seattle asks, what is the edge that you explore with regards to the relationship between tradition and your emerging contemporary vision?
Yeah, I think I think I'm not really like happy unless I'm on an edge. Like, I never really thought about it as an edge, but I'm always moving forward. I don't like to be repetitive, and I don't like to, the thing that drives me forward is making things that I haven't yet seen. And so if that means that I'm like on an edge, then yes, I'm on an edge. I always want to be the avant-garde. I always want to like make work in native art that is pushing the envelope in terms of what we expect to see from our native artists.
Very good. And the next question comes from Betsy in Vancouver. And she asks, was Robert Davidson an influence on your art, and any other artists that had an impact on your career?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Robert Davidson, big influence on my career. Probably on most artists my age and younger. He probably had a big influence on their career. I was introduced to Robert Davidson's work by my dad, who's also an artist. This is his studio. And he was a huge influence. He was like, both, from the point of view of like a young Indigenous man that was like looking up to somebody, that was big. And then also just like the work itself was just spectacular. So I was always a fan of his work. I was a fan of his work. I mean, so many. I look at everybody. Like, I look at everybody and I steal from everybody, and I look at what they're doing and I try to evolve what they're doing. Like, I'm very interested in what everyone is doing. And so I studied from, like, although I only went and physically studied from Lawrence and my father, I studied all these guys. I studied, I studied Dempsey Bob, I studied Joe David, I studied Robert Davidson, I studied Jim Hart, I studied Don Yeomans, Bo Dick, Susan Point. I mean, you name it, I've studied them, and I've enjoyed their work. I'm in awe of all their work, to be quite honest. And then I also have like a lot of like non-Indigenous, like non-native art influences as well. Obviously, like Picasso, and I like a lot of the surrealists. A lot of surrealism in my work. So that's something that just really like came naturally to me, surrealism. And so was a big fan of that work and always saw myself doing that kind of work. But yeah, there was a lot of artists that have come before us, and you know, they put us where we are right now. Like I'm super lucky that I'm able to like make this my career, and you know, I come here every day, or my painting studio, and I get to do this for the rest of my life. And that's made possible by people like my dad, like Robert Davidson, like Bill Reed, and these people from that era that really like established this art form as an art and also as a business.
Excellent answer. So I know that there's some current work behind you, and perhaps that's where we'll turn next. If you can begin to discuss the sculpture that you're working on currently.
Yeah, so I'll begin by saying that like I think I'd said I started all these over a year ago. This is a body of work, and so we saw the two complete ones that we saw slides of, and then these ones are most of them are about 90 to 95% complete. So here's one here. This one is it's a bear transformation. That's like the working title. I don't have the actual title for it yet, but you can see that it's like a portrait style mask with a bear, a full bear on this side here. If I go right around, you can see the neck is kind of this like really modern type of totem.
Very nice. And you use that very flat, you know, side to the sculpture. You don't seem to have any issue with having an unadorned surface in your sculpture. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, this whole series is very much about not making things perfect, not finishing things, like finishing them off, but leaving things unfinished and leaving like pencil lines and uncarved areas. So maybe one side of the face will be carved and this side won't be so carved, but not being super precious about how the finished look is. I kind of it was sort of like this idea that I had where a finished mask kind of, for me, tended to lose some of its potential energy. The energy it was so perfect and so fine and so flawless that you couldn't see the artist's hand anymore, and to me it became kind of cold. And so I wanted to bring back some energy into the pieces again, and one of the ways I thought I could do that was by making them kind of half finished, and then you would see that the artist wasn't finished and that there is energy still in the piece that has yet to be used. There's this potential inside of it. And it's kind of neat that, you know, they can kind of, to be honest, you know how I came upon this? This came, it's funny because I don't use a lot of technology in my work, but this idea came apart because of technology. It became pretty obvious to me, like when I was looking at Instagram, that so a lot of like native artists were posting like progress shots, like sort of like, oh, here's, you know, this day and this day and this day, and I would be loving the work, and then they would finish it, and I'd be like, oh man, I started to realize I liked it better before it was finished, and so I just took that over to the work here and started trying to create the work with that in mind, in that I didn't want to finish it. And it's really hard to pull yourself away from it because the tendency is to want to finish it. But I really don't want to have that precious look to it. I really want to have that look where it's like pieces are slammed into one another. And, you know, there's this, I keep saying slammed, I guess, you know, there's a certain amount of I don't want to say violence, but like just pushing things together in a way that they, you know, maybe are not meant to be put together.
And, oh, okay.
I'm going to just show one more just because it's kind of like what you're talking about. So this one's not finished yet, but as you can see the wolf on this side, and then as it comes around. Do the face on that side, and then you get that flat spot. You got big flat spot, which is which, like, I think I just really like the idea of the when molds don't come together and fit together properly. I remember, like, you know, when you're a kid and you see those like little green GI Joe, or not GI Joe, but like the little green army figures, and they do the mold and they don't quite fit together properly, and you get a face that's like kind of off and there's a flat spot on it. I really kind of like that look. I liked that it was, you know, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't meant to look that way, but it had a really monstrous kind of cool look to it as a kid. I really enjoyed that.
And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind showing a couple of your tools to the viewers.
Yeah, sure. I did grab a couple here. So the first tool that I have here is, you know, one of your most essential tools. This is called the elbow adze. Looks like an elbow. And you use it, you swing it like a hammer, and it's like an axe turned on its side. So the blade is like that. And you just would, you know, kind of hold your piece and use that kind of a motion. And it's really great for sculpting. You know, I did all the necks on these, the rounded necks that way. And then two other knives here, just to sort of show, you know, kind of the difference in the world here is that, you know, when you're a carver, you're dealing in quite a lot of different scales. You know, you can go from like monumental sculpture totem poles all the way down to like pendants, and then you can get into jewelry where you have even smaller micro blades. So I got just a really small blade and a really big blade, just to show you sort of the type of tool that we might be using for different jobs.
Okay, that's really very enlightening for our viewers, I'm sure, to see your tools. And now I thought we could offer a special treat, and we'll move ahead to your current paintings that you've been working on for the last little while. And perhaps you can just add some commentary to these current works.
Yeah, so this is a series I've been working on for quite a while now, and I refer to it as neo-formline, using the formline in new and unconventional ways. One of them being sculpting the formline. So the formline's usually flat, and 3D it. This painting here is called the Carver, or the Mask Carver, and it's, again, it starts as a drawing, and it's something that I'll flesh out as a drawing in one sitting, and then it just comes as an inspiration. So in the beginning of my career, I was doing a lot of work that was kind of come up with an idea and then try to paint or draw that idea. And I've kind of moved away from that in recent years. I always found that I had a lot more fun when I was just doing visionary type work, when I was just doing work that like literally it just flows into me, and I've always been able to do it. And I like the process better, and I feel like I enjoy it much more than the other process. So like I said, when I first began making work, I was like very much like nailing down a concept, fleshing out the concept and then making it work. But now it's like much more just about trusting yourself and your instincts, and just just letting it go. Okay, and this next painting, Shawn? Another one from the series. So all of these paintings I did during the COVID break. I was trapped in the studio and worked on all of these. This one, again, playing with some perspective, but playing with perspective, but not playing with perspective. So I got a blacked out background, and that acts as like, it can either be flat right up at your face, or it can also like recede 100 miles back, and that's the point. And then because when you're dealing with our two-dimensional type of work, our graphic type of work, it's usually quite flat or molded onto something, whatever it might be. And so I like to play with flatness as well as playing with depth. So there's this constant push-pull between flatness and sculptural.
And in a similar sense, this work, and you mentioned earlier about the quality of the black background.
Yeah, it's got to be. I don't like a shiny black background for these, because then it becomes very much about a flat painting surface. I like that background to be almost velvety, so you can just like, it just goes so, the depth of it just goes so far back. I really appreciate that. With these, I really tried to create, there's a few things going on obviously, but with this series, for the most part, what I'm trying to do is create bodies that, like, so it might be a human, like in this case, looking this way, picking up the mushrooms, but then you also have this other face too that looks straight at you. So, that was sort of my goal with these, was to create two different faces within that face. So you can see with this one, again, you've got the woman looking to the side with the frog tongue, and then you have her also looking forward using the eagle and the raven, eagle going up and raven going down, putting them both together, and their eyes, kind of create the distance between our eyes, kind of thing, right?
And these works are roughly at what scale, Shawn?
They're all actually. For the first time in my career, I've kind of been playing with the scale of the works. Usually they're all quite large, but these ones are all sort of all over the place in terms of scale, but they're all generally, 5-6 feet, something like that.
We just had a question come in as part of the chat function, and someone is asking how you get that sort of matte, velvety look to this particular series.
Yeah, it's really just the paint. So with this series here, I really just wanted to make the paint aspect be extremely simple. And so there's only 3 colors in these paintings, and the colors are, and they're all golden products, and I just use Payne's Gray and white and Titan Buff. And really, you're just creating most of it. There's just a small amount of Titan Buff in there just to kind of, just give a little bit of yellowish, just to play off that blue. But most of that is just extending the Payne's Gray. And Payne's Gray is like a mixture of black and blue. So that's why it goes blue when you add white to it. And the black is just, so when you're looking at the background there, that's actually like a really dark blue, not a black.
Well, Shawn, I just want to say thank you so much for just walking us through the history of your painting and how you've arrived at sculpture. I think it's offered our viewers a wonderful perspective on your work. I want to also thank the entire Audain Art Museum team that's been working so diligently towards our reopening on Friday. Also want to express my respect and appreciation for the ongoing support of our founder, Michael Ordain and Yoshi Karasawa, our trustees that have provided me with expert guidance over the past 3 months of our closure, and the TNT crew here for their unswerving commitment each week, our director producer, Justine Nickel, our quality control coordinator, Erica Chan, and we have a few shout outs to Kathleen in Delta, Karen in Vancouver, Tim and Julie in BC, who have been kind enough over the past few weeks to donate to this program. So we're very appreciative. Also want to thank the Equinox Gallery for helping us out with images tonight. And thank you, the viewers. You've given value to this program as a part of our new virtual engagement that will continue on to season 2 in January and February. And we're very appreciative of your registration, your questions, your comments. And just to let everyone know, next Tuesday will be our final program for season 1. And we have a wonderful pleasure of zooming into Ottawa, Ontario at the National Gallery of Canada with Sasha Suda, the CEO and director, as well as Kitty Scott, who's the chief curator and deputy director, and they're going to give us a state of the nation. So before I leave, I want to thank you again, Shawn, for being so enlightening from the Sunshine Coast. Good night, Shawn.
Thanks, Curtis. Take
All
care.
right. Take care, everyone.